Hey Photo World, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Welcome, Photo World, to Take and Talk Pics. This is episode 14. I'm your host, Rob Kruger, and thank you for tuning in.
There's always this kind of through line of authenticity and realness to it. So I'm always trying to combine that truthful authenticity with a dynamic backdrop, a lot of rich colors, boldness, stuff like that.
Today's featured guest is Danny Weiss. Danny was a professional actor turned pro wedding and portrait photographer. Over the past 10 years, Danny has been traveling the world, capturing beautiful weddings and telling stories of hundreds of couples. Danny, welcome to Take and Talk Pics. Please share with Photo World a little bit more about yourself and your photography business.
Hey Rob, thanks for having me. About 10 years deep now, I stumbled headfirst into photography through a gift that my wife got me, a birthday gift of a photography class. At the time, I was still an actor. I was living in California, Santa Monica. She got me for my 30th birthday a adult ed class, and about 2 weeks in, I took a picture. I surprised myself that I took that picture. I just kept staring at it and saying, I took that. I think at that moment, I mentally switched careers in my head. I still pursued acting in California for another 2 years while I was quickly taking lots of classes at Santa Monica College. And then the acting just kind of left my interest as photography kind of built until it became the thing I was pursuing as passionately as I guess I was acting before then.
Out of a gift, and I don't know about you, but I try to tell my clients that photography is the greatest gift of all, so that proved to be true for you, for sure.
I loved it. So. Yeah, I was thrilled. I remember the picture was taken on slide film, which I'm not even sure it exists anymore.
But that's the best way to see, for sure, if you're learning.
It was great, and that picture actually hangs up in my office right in front of my desk. It's a reminder of why I got into this.
Very nice. Must be a really good picture because I don't like some of my early stuff that much.
That's cool. The one picture that I do like in those first couple of years. It's probably the only one that still remains. But it's a cool picture. Skateboarder in the sunset dropping behind him in Santa Monica. I got my start with photographing skateboarders. That's hysterical. Okay. Can you start us off, get inspiration flowing for Photo World out there who's listening, and just tell us a little bit about maybe a quote or a mantra that you try to live by for your business? One that my mom used to always tell me when I was pursuing acting, and I think I just transferred it over to photography. She would always say, to get ahead in this world, you got to beg, borrow, and steal. You know, what that really means to me is you got to be persistent and relentless above all else. And that means a million things. That's in my business. I'm always pushing where I can grow, how I can market better. And in the moment while I'm shooting, especially weddings where, you know, after doing this for a bunch of years, while each wedding is different, they do follow a certain rhythm. And it's very easy to fall on old habits and old tricks. It's harder to be relentless, to keep trying to get that great picture. 9th hour in, I'm sure, as you know, Rob, since you shoot weddings, your feet start hurting and you're tired and your brain is fried. Yeah. It's hard in that 9th hour, that 10th hour to still be persistent and still try to just go for it and surprise yourself. It serves to be true all the time for Photo World listening and me personally. Yeah, just keep going, you know, push through a little bit and make sure that the passion is driving that. So then you know you're doing it right. I think you kind of already touched on this, but if maybe there's a larger way of sharing it, tell us what sparked your interest enough to really make that leap and leave the acting fully and go for the photography. So if anyone out there was an actor or pursues it currently, it's a beast of a career. It is hard on the soul. It's hard day in and day out. And I think at the time where photography came to my life, I was looking for an out. I had been an actor professionally in the unions and everything for 10 years. On my bio and my website, you know, part of my bio is, yes, you've seen me in something. So I was out there doing it, but it was tough and the rejection was brutal. And I started in New York, where I'm from. Those years were good. You know, you did theater, you felt like you were part of something special. I moved out to LA and I just became very quickly disenchanted with acting. So really right at the same time I moved out to LA and acting was starting to lose its glimmer to me, I stumbled upon photography and I said, gosh, this is something that is tangible. I can look at this and say, I took this picture and I'm proud of this. Acting was through your fingertips. You don't know if you did a good job. You don't know if the people are liking you. But with this, it was much more cut and dry. You could look at a picture and say, I like what I did there. I see how I can improve there. And, oddly enough, it was always weddings that I wanted to pursue. I remember in photography school, I stumbled upon an article with a photographer, and I said, gosh, this wedding work that he was shooting is artful and beautiful and has resonance. And it just quickly became the type of photography that I wanted to pursue.
Do you remember who it was you were seeing at that time?
I do. I think the very famous Joe Busink.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been around forever, and he actually was cool enough to be willing to sit down with me. He was living in LA at the time. I was an actor used to sneaking into auditions and cold calling everyone, so I wasn't afraid to call. Called him probably within a week of that article, and he's like, yeah, come on down. He was in Beverly Hills at the time, so he sat with me. We were almost going to work together. He was going to give me a shot for my first job, but the date didn't work out, and I soon thereafter moved back to New York.
Danny, can you share with Photo World a time where you had to learn the hard way? I think we do learn a lot from other people's experiences going through a failure moment. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. And not many, or maybe not many, but I know there are photographers who won't be willing to admit something like this, but I shot a wedding and I screwed up. I wasn't proud of the final product, and I got a complaint from the clients that was spot on, and I had a hard time accepting that. And very specifically, I had just moved to New York, and at the time I was shooting in LA a little bit, but in New York it's a very different setup. You need help with lights, and I was shooting in a dark room. And I didn't do a good job of using my strobes on camera. At the time, I didn't really know how to use off-camera strobes. The reception coverage just wasn't up to speed, wasn't up to par. And I had to bite that bullet and really make a decision. I live here now in New York, and the demands are different, and I need to become an expert at this thing that I was frankly avoiding. So I took a workshop, I read, and I experimented, and I spent a year going from being very comfortable with natural daylight, available light photography, to being equally as comfortable using lights both on and off camera. And, for many photographers, I think the technical end of things is very exciting and interesting. I hate it. I don't get excited by it. I don't enjoy it. When I was in school, it was painful for me to understand f-stops and shutter speeds and f16 rule. It just took so much effort on my part. And that's probably why I avoided learning, especially about off-camera lighting early on, because it's hard. It's not easy, but like anything else, if you put your mind to it, you can make it happen. And so I went from that to shooting now in a space that no space would throw me at this point. I can walk into any venue in New York and know what to do.
And with wedding photography specifically, I feel like that's the case. You have to know that photojournalistic style, and then getting the natural light, or knowing when it's appropriate to implement some artificial light, and having the ability to have that on-site studio quality lighting for the detail shots in the reception hall, where otherwise it is not lit that way.
Absolutely. And the kind of weddings that I have, I guess, ascended to or gotten, have grown, and they're on the higher end, and the demand and expectation is great. Mm-hmm. So if just good enough doesn't work, you have to really nail it. And if anyone has shot in New York, they'll understand that, we're shooting in old renovated banks, and we're shooting in huge high ceiling event spaces. And if you don't have a know-how and a knowledge of that off-camera lighting, you're doomed. You're screwed. So that was a big fail that turned into, a way to separate myself and do some real high-quality looking work.
And it shows in your work that you have a nice balance between the two. So it's paid off.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Share with us something that you might consider to be the most important practice to your photography, like a piece from your workflow that has to be there every time.
So we're talking the technical end, the behind-the-scenes stuff?
It could be something that you do with each client, or behind-the-scenes stuff, or on the job.
Yep. I don't know if this is spot on with what you're asking, but I make it a point at any job to be uber friendly, smile on my face friendly, even if I don't feel it, because that maitre d' or that florist or that band leader is going to remember two people: the photographers who've got a big old puss on their face, and the ones who are exceptionally pleasant and very comfortable saying, hey, what can I do to help your day, make your day better? And it's a small world. And I live in New York City, which is considered one of the biggest places in the country, but it's still a very small little world that does this kind of work. And, your reputation precedes you often. So I make it a point, any guest, any bridesmaid or groomsman, I work my hardest to just be very pleasant, to the point where my face hurts at the end of the day from smiling so much.
That was perfect to that question, that just put it out there, even if you have to fake it a little sometimes, because you do. It's just the way life is. especially
Yes.
with a wide mix of people. You're always working with people, and you just have to represent yourself that way because that's what you want to be portrayed as and believe in.
And I was going to say, if you're deep into the year and you're already 20 weddings in and you've had enough and, you got albums to do the next day on Monday, and you don't feel like it gets harder, and I always say, I know I'm at the end of my year when my jokes are no longer funny. They're just kind of mean. I know I've lost my sense of humor, and it's just kind of, we're grinding it out at the end of the year. And I have to remind myself that, it's still their day and they're still happy and happy to be here. And, it's my job to be a pleasant vendor.
For sure. Well, we have a wide range of photographers listening. Danny, could you please share with Photo World one thing that you think could lead to growth and success in a photography business, regardless of the level you'd be at today?
Well, there's two sides to that. There's the fun creative side and the business side.
Mm-hmm.
So creatively, doing work for yourself, shooting things that are outside of your comfort zone, I think is really important. I am currently going through a process of needing that. Weddings, I've been doing it for a while and still thoroughly enjoy it, but I need a balance. I need to find other things to photograph. And I think the other things that I'm shooting will inform the weddings as well, because you experiment with different looks, you experiment with different clients, and it can only inform your bread and butter, your day job, so to speak. So from a creative side, once you feel that growth curve is kind of leveled off, it's time to challenge yourself and do some other stuff. I recently got a new kind of camera to play with, not professionally, but just walk around the street and take pictures. So that's the creative end. Professionally, from the business end, there's a famous movie that Alec Baldwin is in called Glengarry Glen Ross. It's a movie about salesmen. And, basically the crux of that movie and the big line of his is always be closing, always be selling, always be trying to sell. And for us, I would say instead of selling or always be closing, it really becomes always be marketing. So never think that you're in a good place and then you'll just stay there. There is someone right behind you that's hungrier and better at it. And it's your job to try to stay in front of the curve by constantly marketing, and that means going to that wedding and shaking hands and being that person that I was talking about before, the friendly, happy guy. But it also means being on top of Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. I wish I didn't have to do any of it, but I realize it's essential to the job. So I am constantly doing that. I'm sending out notes after a wedding to the florist. Hey, great job. I have some good images if you want to use it for your own marketing. And I never say, and how can you help me? It's always about how I can help you. A planner, hey, so much fun to work with you. Pictures will be ready in a couple of weeks. Whatever you need, let me know. It's my pleasure to get you images for your own marketing. And that is always be marketing, always be pushing forward.
That network of people, they'll come full circle and come back and think of you because of the hundreds of photographers they work with throughout a year or two, they're all the same in the end. But if you made a point of doing something and introducing yourself and then following up, you did something that almost 10 out of 10 didn't do, it's hardly to say 9 out of 10. It's more like 99 out of 100.
I think so. And listen, I'll be frank. After a bunch of years, my business was humming and things were cooking, and I got a little lazy with that stuff too. And I felt everything level off. I stopped marketing a little bit. I was, just kind of in cruise control. And I realized after a year or so, I got to crank it back up, and I sensed that things were moving away from me a little bit. And first thing I did was I came up with some idea for this great wedding planner campaign. And, I've since booked from that alone that I did last year, 2 weddings this year from that one specific campaign, and hopefully a relationship where lots of more weddings will come from that one specific planner who responded to that campaign last year.
So Photo World, take a look at the systems you have in place, see if you can adjust them, improve them, add something to it, keep that as part of your repertoire and continue on those systems because they pay off.
And you have to be relentless. There's never a time when you can just go into cruise control.
Right.
I would argue that our most famous photographers out there are some of our best marketers as well.
I agree. Danny, have you had an aha moment during your career? Something that just hit you and it really showed that, yes, this is what I need to be doing?
Yeah, and I know I think before this officially started, I was talking about it briefly, but absolutely. Early on, I had just moved to New York. I was just building a name. I was working part-time in some job just to buy new camera equipment and everything. So I was really hustling, working all week and shooting weddings. And I'd gotten this very, very small backyard wedding with a couple. And it was a military groom. He looked great in his military outfit and the bride. And then we did the portrait session down by the beach where they lived. I got a picture that in the moment didn't seem like anything, but when I came home and looked at it, it seemed to spark for me an approach, a way to shoot that appealed to me. And that was The bride was laughing very naturally. The groom was looking at her smiling, and it felt very real, authentic, which, I know photojournalism, journalism, candid, those are our catchwords. That's what all our clients at least think they want. Many of us in the world of weddings will throw those words around, but that picture actually felt very real and authentic to me. But it was also with a very rich, deep blue sky behind it, and the beach, and the light was perfect. And for me, I thought, oh, if I could blend these truthful, authentic, real moments with a dynamic backdrop, with a color palette that pops, that's very appealing to me. That's what I want to chase. And that was probably year one. And ever since then, that same goal, specifically with the portraits, is always in the back of my mind. I always want to have moments that are, or at least feel real, with backdrops that really pop, with colors that are rich and bold and dynamic. And that tends to be what excites me the most. It's not enough to have this image where all the other photographers in the world say, oh my God, that's so cool, that's so cool. It needs to also speak to the clients and needs to speak to me. When I meet with clients, I always say the word that runs through my mind on any given day is authentic. I need the pictures to feel authentic.
And that is huge and can take people almost their entire career to get to the point where that is the important part. Be your authentic self.
Yep.
Just put yourself that way. And as photographers, we got to put that into our images, which is really difficult to translate. But once you can do that, that's when you start realizing, okay, I do have a style and this is what it is. So be your authentic self to get those.
When I was an actor, they would always say, find your way into a role. Find that key that opens the door for that approach into a role. And it's no different with photography. I think everyone's got to find their way in. I know so many photographers who are professional students, and they study everyone's blogs and they go to every workshop and every class, and their work just, I think, while solid, just lacks anything authentic or original to them. It looks like 10 other people's work that they are following. I think whatever that means, and even if it's not the most popular trendy look for today, find your own way in, and then you have an approach, a springboard with which to shoot on any given day.
Right. Niche down, the market will follow,
Yes.
Danny, could you share with Photo World a time where you had an I made it moment?
Well, I would argue that I'm not sure you ever feel like you make it. I think there'd be a risk in saying, all right, I make it. I made it. I'm going to put my feet up now and, catch up on my latest TV show. There are always new levels we're trying to reach, and even as I speak to you about weddings, I'm looking to move into commercial work and editorial work. So there should always be what's next. My dad, God bless him, was 83, who was an artist his whole life, is always looking for the next thing. There is no rest. It's what can I do next? What can I pursue next? Or where can I take my creativity to now? So I wouldn't say that I've gotten out, like this is that I made it. I remember a particular wedding that was high pressure, incredibly high end, and I knew that if I nailed it, it would help my business for the next couple of years to follow. It was a 4-day, huge Indian wedding in New York City. I was doing the brother's wedding on Thursday, and then the sister's wedding Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So basically 2 weddings over 4 days. The New York Public Library is an iconic space in Manhattan with Indian weddings. If you've shot them or people listening have, they have what's called the Barat, a groom's parade. And this particular client had that parade down 42nd Street. And I just was in the middle of it, and I knew I was nailing it that day. I was very much in the zone that weekend, and I was just like, look at me, I'm doing it. This is big time. And this wedding was, big budget event, and I was just thrilled to be there. And that passion, I think, came out in the images because I was really proud of that work, which was the most important part.
I've done a couple myself of Indian weddings, and they're a tall order because they're usually longer, and you have to really budget your energy throughout. Yep. They're really fun. I mean, there's so much going on. They're really fun.
It was a 15-hour day, and I don't think I got tired until I sat in my car.
Then you did it right. That's how you do it, Just be at 100 all the time, and then go take your break.
Wedding work is funny. It's hard work. It's not easy. It's not like 3 pictures and you're done. You're earning your keep that day. Right. But there is a tremendous satisfaction when it all goes well, that you did a job well done and you did a good job. I will say, and I will say that there are times when you sit in your car at the end of the night profoundly disappointed that it didn't play out the way you'd hoped, and the timeline fell apart, or the couple wasn't what you expected. And so for me, at least, it can be as equally disappointing as it is gratifying.
You just got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Danny, during your photography career so far, what is the best advice you have ever received?
One guy told me to buy some real estate, so you don't have to rely only on photography. I haven't done that yet, other than my house. I think you meant commercial real estate. What's the best bit of advice? Still waiting for it. So if anyone out there wants to email me with the best bit of advice, send it my way. I honestly can't think of what I'm trying to think if there's anything. No, nothing comes to mind at the
Well,
moment.
I think the good thing in that is there's probably been a lot of great advice along the way and equally valuable. And
Yeah,
it's led you to where you are. So nothing shines to be the top, but there's a lot of
definitely
great
the
stuff.
marketing and being pleasant. These aren't new ideas. I didn't
Right.
come up with these ideas. Your next bridesmaid is your bridesmaid is your next client. That was one that certainly made sense to me early on. And be pleasant with the other vendors. Marketing, marketing, marketing. I think, and it never dawned upon me, or at least not much with acting, that was a business too. But with photography, early on, I realized it was a business. And that was definitely by other people that I followed who would talk about that. So I never ignored the business end of photography.
A part that a lot of people overlook. They go, oh, I want to take pictures. I love doing this. It feels fun. It's great. And then they start getting into the business side of things and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not a business owner. This is really difficult.
I get approached all the time by enthusiasts and hobbyists who love photography for the love of photography. And I often say, keep it a hobby. Once you try to make a living at something, it changes the dynamic of it considerably. So if you're not looking to become a businessman, then shoot for the fun of it and get another job. If you're comfortable with the business end of it, then pursue it. Because it is much more a business than it is a pursuit of art, at least when you're starting and you're growing it. And everyone says this, if you shoot 10% of the time, you're lucky. Most of the time, and as soon as I'm done with this, I'll go back downstairs where my office is and start editing again. Most of the time, you're in front of a computer.
If you had to start your photography business all over, right from the beginning, with a couple exceptions, you have your gear, you have your knowledge, but the website's gone, the business doesn't exist, there aren't really any past clients or a portfolio to speak of. What would you do first to begin your new photography business?
Got my gear, got my knowledge, don't have a website. I would find that right client for me. Now we're talking specifically weddings. A mistake I think I made early on, which hopefully informs the question you just asked, is I went pursuing that high-end client right away. It was probably essential. That was the only way I could support my family and my kids, and my wife and us. But the challenge with that is the pressure is so great, the demand is so high, that fun kind of loose creative sense that you get when you're starting out and the couple's just thrilled to have you there and they're not paying top dollar. It's very different. You have the ability to play and just go for it. When you shoot on a higher level, that does go away a little bit. And I'd heard other people say that and I didn't really listen or I didn't understand that, but it's really true. You still get to play and be creative, but it comes at a higher price. You're risking more on those days of, and the way that I cover myself is, I get the cover your ass shots first before I get to play. And that playing time seems to be less than it used to be. So I would tell someone who's just starting out, find your way in. Don't be so caught up what your neighbor is doing or that blog that you love is doing. Find your own way in and support yourself with some other means of income for a year or two. So you don't have to make a living at it right away. Take your time, slowly experiment and play and do it almost anonymously. Once you throw up a blog and a website, you've got people watching. So take a little bit of time to just find your own way in.
Something I heard a couple years ago, I really wish I could remember where I got this from, but don't compare your start to someone else's middle, Just go do your thing, get it going, and then find your middle. Get there so other people can make that mistake like you might have,
Can I take credit for that quote? So I like that one.
You can use it all you want.
Let's say you heard that from me. I like that.
I'm borrowing it from someone else. I wish I knew who.
Yeah, good.
But it makes a lot of sense, and it kind of lets you get a little sigh of relief that it's like, okay, so I'm only this many years in. What does that mean? Who else was there at this time? What does that mean exactly?
Absolutely.
Do you have an app or an internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
An app? No, like I said earlier, I'm the least technical photographer I think out there. No. I mean, this may sound corny, but nature is more of like my resource. I go outside and that kind of inspires me. I have other interests, so I step away from photography, and that'll kind of be my resource.
What kind of other interests?
Other than being a family man and raising my kids with my wife, I do these things called triathlons. So that is very much a part of my week. It's how my day mostly starts, by swimming, biking, or running, or both, or two of those a day. But being out there, with nature oftentimes will give me clarity, give me a new idea, a new marketing idea, or a new approach to shooting. So I would say that resource, maybe stepping away from it, is for me the greatest resource, or nature, just getting some sun on my face.
And I think that's an awesome resource. What is the best piece of gear you could just not live without?
That 85 lens and that 50 lens are two that I enjoy thoroughly. I am more than anything a portrait photographer. That's the part that interests me the most.
Mm-hmm.
I shoot weddings, it's the portraits that get me the most excited. So when I put that lens on, it sure makes me happy.
Nothing beats that prime clarity. A zoom lens will never match. It's just so beautiful.
Sometimes I feel crazy because I work with a lot of, with a lot of weddings, you'll have someone called the second photographer shoot with you.
Mm.
And most of the people, at least that I work with, they're Zoom guys. They've got 24-70 on one camera, either a 70-200 or a 16-35 on the other, and they're just doing that all day long, and the pictures look good. I'm constantly changing lenses, and it's exhausting sometimes. Where's my 50? Where's my 85? Where's my 35? But I just think you can't beat that look. It just does not feel the same.
Danny, please share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, the best way we can reach you, whether it's your website or a Facebook page or something, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay. Parting guidance. Make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Do it for yourself first and foremost. If you're trying to make other people happy, if you're trying to impress other people, it's going to fall short very quickly. Don't be terribly caught up in how many likes you have, how many comments on your Facebook page. More than anything, if you're doing this professionally, the thing that you should be most concentrated on is, are your clients happy? Are they pleased with your work? And are you proud of your growth? And I do think it should always be a process of trying to get better at it, improve upon it, and make yourself happy. I'm the happiest when I surprise myself. When I come home, I download the cards and I look at the image and say, look at me, I took that. That is kind of my parting bit of advice. Find me through my website, I guess, www.dannyweissphoto.com.
Photo World will know where they can find all these links on Taking Talk Pics. On your show notes page, just type in the search bar, Danny. Danny, I cannot thank you enough for your time today and sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Good chatting.
Hey, Photo World. Do you travel for your shoots? Maybe you have been booked for a destination wedding. It could just be that brief time you have to get away and take it easy. Whatever the reason, head to besttravelforless.com, where you can book all your travel needs. You can bundle the hotel and auto rental, book a flight for your next cruise, or host your next family reunion, and point everyone in the right direction with besttravelforless.com. Richard and Judy will be there to answer your questions and help you with what you are planning. They are your personal travel agents without all those nasty fees. You can find your way from the takeandtalkpics.com affiliates page. Thank you, Photo World, for tuning in to another great episode here on Take and Talk Pics. It was a pleasure having you, and I'll see you next time.